The footage is grainy, almost lost to time. A bootleg VHS tape from late 1998, filmed in the concrete guts of a wrestling arena far from the cheering crowds. It shows two figures locked in a silent, brutal struggle. One is a mountain of a man, a wrestling legend known only as the Foreman. The other is Steven Seagal. There's no referee, no bell, just the sickening thud of fists and a code of honor being settled the hard way. Then the tape cuts out. The story vanishes. And so in a way, did Seagal. We remember the man who dominated the silver screen. The master of Aikido who broke wrists and delivered justice with a stoic glare. But after the late 90s, the fire in his eyes seemed to change. The blockbuster roles faded, replaced by a quiet retreat from the public eye. We thought we knew the story, that Hollywood had simply moved on. But the truth was buried deeper in the sweat-soaked echoes of that backstage war. For 25 years, that war was a ghost story, a secret whispered among old-timers. Until one night on live television, a new voice decided to mock a ghost. He didn't know that some legends don't sleep. They wait. This is the story of a debt that never expired and the silent return of a man who came back to pay it in full. The official record says Steven Seagal just stepped back. He pursued music, business, and became a face of a different kind of global politics. But for those who knew, this wasn't a retirement. It was an exile. The fight with the Foreman wasn't for a title belt or a pay-per-view bonus. It was about respect. An unsanctioned feud built on a foundation of martial pride. Whispers said the Foreman questioned Seagal's warrior spirit, and Seagal answered not with words, but with action. Their final encounter in that boiler room ended without a victor. It ended with a shared, silent understanding that it was unfinished. The Foreman retired from wrestling weeks later, his body broken. Seagal walked away from the entire world he'd built. He carried the weight of that night not as a failure, but as an unsettled score. Each passing year was another page in a chapter he couldn't close. For 2.5 decades, the silence held. Seagal lived a life far from the Klieg lights, a man seemingly content to be a footnote in action movie history. He became a memory, a name you'd mention when talking about old-school heroes. He never spoke of the past, never alluded to that night. It was as if the man in that grainy video never existed. He was a quiet grandfather, a musician, a man at peace. But peace is a fragile thing. True honor has no statute of limitations. Out there, in the quiet, he wasn't fading away. He was remembering. He was waiting for a sign, for a reason to return to a place of ghosts and settle a debt that time could not erase. The world had forgotten the promise made in the silence of that boiler room. He never did. His name is Jax the Decimator Kincaid. A new breed of superstar wrestler, arrogant, loud, and born long after the legends had carved their names in stone. During a live broadcast, with millions watching, Kincaid grabs a microphone. He runs down a list of old heroes, calling them relics. Then he lands on a name. And Steven Seagal. The movie tough guy who got run out of our world by a better man, hiding for 25 years. I guess some dogs are all bark. The crowd roars. The internet explodes. But in a quiet room far away, a man who has not answered a public call in years sees the clip. The insult isn't to him. It's to the memory of the code. It's to the Foreman. It's to the unfinished chapter. Later that night, a private phone rings. It's the chairman of the WWE. The conversation is short. Not about money, not about ratings. It's about an invitation. An opportunity to answer. A long pause hangs in the air, thick with the weight of 25 years. Then, a quiet voice on the other end says, "I'll be there." The announcement sends a shockwave through the world. Steven Seagal is returning to a WWE ring. Not for an interview, not for a celebrity appearance, for one night only. to stand in the same ring as Jocks Kincaid. The new generation of fans laugh. They see it as a publicity stunt, a joke. But the old guard, the ones who grew up on Seagal's films, the ones who remember the legends of real men, they know better. They know what this is. It's a reckoning. In the weeks leading up to the event, Kincaid runs his mouth nonstop. Seagal says nothing. There are no press conferences, no interviews. His silence is his statement. A flashback to a different time. A cold night in 1998. The foreman, breathing hard, looks at him and says, "This isn't over." Not until one of us says it is. Seagal looks at his own weathered hands. He knows what he has to do. This was never about fame. This was about honor. The arena is electric, a sea of 80,000 screaming fans. Kincaid enters with explosions, fire, and a deafening theme song, soaking in the boos and cheers. He is the present, loud, and unapologetic. Then the arena goes dark. A single spotlight hits the entrance ramp. There is no music, only the sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate. Steven Seagal emerges from the tunnel, not in wrestling gear, but in a simple black GI. He looks older, his face a roadmap of the years, but his eyes are the same. They are calm, ancient, and absolute. The walk to the ring feels like an eternity. The jeers of the young fans slowly die down, replaced by an awestruck silence from the old. They see it. This isn't the movie star. This is the man from the boiler room. He climbs the steps, slips through the ropes, and stands in the center of the ring. He never takes his eyes off Kincaid. The stare-down freezes the crowd. One man fighting for glory, the other for a ghost. The bell rings. Kincaid explodes with youthful fury, a flurry of strikes and kicks. Seagal barely moves. He absorbs the attack, his feet rooted to the mat. It's the calm in the eye of a hurricane. He isn't blocking punches. He's reading a story he's known his whole life. The crowd watches, breathless. They thought they knew what this would be. They were wrong. Kincaid lunges, leaving himself open for a fraction of a second. It's all Seagal needs. In a blur of motion too fast to be a memory, he flows forward. A wrist lock. A turn. A redirect of energy that sends Kincaid sprawling to the canvas. It's over in less than 10 seconds. It wasn't a fight. It was a lesson. The arena is utterly silent. Seagal stands over the defeated Kincaid, who looks up in disbelief and pain. He doesn't gloat. He doesn't raise a hand in victory. Some debts do not expire with time. Seagal kneels down, his face close to Kincaid's ear, hidden from the cameras. The world leans in, desperate to know what the legend is saying. He whispers, and a look of pure shock crosses Kincaid's face. The cameras will never pick it up. The microphones will never hear it. But he says, "The foreman." He sends his regards. The debt is paid. He rises, his duty fulfilled. He looks out at the crowd for a single moment, a silent acknowledgement to those who understood. Then he turns and walks away, disappearing back up the ramp as quietly as he arrived, leaving a legacy not of fame, but of a promise kept. The world saw a match, but he had just closed a chapter that had been open for 25 years. Back in the shadows, Steven Seagal vanished once more. But this time it was different. It wasn't an exile. It was a completion. He had returned not to reclaim the spotlight, but to restore a balance that only he and one other man understood. For the generation that grew up watching him, it was a powerful reminder that true strength isn't always the loudest voice in the room. Sometimes it's the quiet resolve to finish what you started, no matter how long it takes. He never needed to say a word. Because when the bell rang, the legend returned, and in the silence that followed, everyone understood. He thought they forgot. He never did.